There it is. Hey, thanks for coming out to our little basement show this evening. My name is Will Clegg, and I'm going to be your host tonight. And if you've never seen Awkward Teenage Years before, it is exactly what the title says. No surprises here. It's going to be true stories from some of New York City's greatest storytellers talking about their teenage years. We get a lot of stories on the show about things like first crushes, first time using drugs, a lot of embarrassing moments at school, all kinds. Mostly, the overarching theme here is coming of age, and that's what we love about our teenage stories so much, and why we keep doing this every month down here at Under St. Mark's. So I want to say hi to the people on the live stream. I never know which camera to look at. Mom, I'm pretty sure you're watching. Maybe 3 or 4 other people. So thank you for tuning in. And thank you, all of you who came out here in person tonight. I'm just going to tell you a little story quickly while we wait for any latecomers to join us. And we're in the middle of summer now, right? We're post 4th of July. When I think about the summer in my teenage years, I think about this young man and a trip that I went on to the Great American West. On a program called Wilderness Ventures. Has anybody ever heard of Wilderness Ventures? Yeah? Well, maybe somebody sort of said yes. Maybe Knowles you might have heard of, the National Outdoor Leadership School, very similar thing. They're basically programs for what I realize now is well-to-do white kids who are doing too many drugs to go away for the summer and not do drugs. I gotten busted by my parents with a baggie of weed. It was not actually weed, it was actually oregano and parsley that I had been putting together to sell to other kids my age. So I could get money to buy real weed for myself. My parents found one of these bags. I could tell it was fake because I don't want them to know about my burgeoning startup, and so I just had to say it was, yep, you got me, it's marijuana. And that, throughout that entire year, they're just kind of like watching my every move. And this opportunity came up for the summer for me to go away to one of these leadership schools. And the one they chose was called Wilderness Ventures. So we buy all these rain suits and cold weather gear, sleeping bags, and this giant backpack for it to all fit into. And as you can see, I was a little bit frail at the age of 15. And the first time we loaded up this backpack and tried it on, I just toppled over in my bedroom because it was so heavy and I was so weak. And so they say, put me on a plane. I've never been on a plane by myself before, and they put me on a plane to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And with this giant backpack, and that's it for a month. And I arrived at one of those airports I'd never been to before that point, where when you get off of the plane, you walk down some stairs onto the tarmac, and the airport was just like, it looks like a couple of double-wide trailers like sandwiched together. And I've never been anywhere west of Georgia at that point in my life. So here I'm in Wyoming. I meet up with this group of 30 other kids who are in a similar scenario, and 6 counselors who are just college students, right? So they're going to be leading us on this month-long trip where we're going hiking and rafting and all these very exciting things that I don't know how to do at all. I've never even spent the night outside before, and so we all meet and become fast friends because nobody knows anybody, and then they see the little cliques form just like they do at middle school, right? And so the counselors, they immediately break up those cliques and split us up into new groups to send us out into the wilderness for our first 7-day trip. And it's kind of amazing, honestly. I learned all kinds of new skills, not skills that necessarily helped me in high school, but things like how to dig a latrine, how to cook macaroni and cheese for 10 people over an open flame, and how to hang your food at the end. This is very important. How to hang your food over a tree branch so it's far away from where you're camping and also far enough away from the actual tree so the bears can't get it. And there's a lot of hiking, a lot of hiking. With this I want to say it was like a 60-pound backpack on my back. We're hiking like 10 to 12 miles a day. It's grueling. I was in like soccer shape, not like football shape. So it was really tough for me. I was the youngest kid on this whole thing. I just turned 15. Most of our males were 16, 17, some were 18, some were about to go to college. And I was just about to go into my ninth grade year. And so this first trip in the wilderness, we're somewhere high in the mountains of the Teton Range in Wyoming. And it's amazingly beautiful everywhere you look. Wake up every morning, watch the sunrise, and just breathing all this clean air. I was a heavy smoker at the age of 15, actually, so this is a nice little respite from that. And we're climbing up to the summit of the mountain on the fifth day of the trip. And we get very close to the top, and we just decide to keep pushing, hopefully get up to a nice campsite that we know is close to the summit. And then a blizzard descends upon us. And I'm not wearing any of my rain gear, none of us are, And suddenly we're like soaking wet, and it's very cold, so we stop and we are quickly changing into our rain stuff so we don't get any more wet. But I was already soaked like down to the bone. I don't have like a lot of gristle on me yet, so I'm like shivering already. But by the time we get to the campsite, like something's wrong. Like I just don't feel good. I'm very lightheaded. Like I just, I feel very spacey. And the counselors all like kind of huddled together and like whispering about me, looking in my way. They get me and they get some dry clothes from somebody else, get me into my sleeping bag at like 5 p.m. Very unusual. Usually up until at least like 9:30, 10 o'clock. And there's you gotta get some rest. And people keep coming in to check on me. I'm trying to sleep, and they keep shining these flashlights into the tent, but I'm kind of in the midst of these dreams. I keep waking up and thinking that I'm like on a highway, and there's headlights, and I'm yelling every time I wake up, and it's happening constantly throughout the night. And finally, I fall asleep, and I don't wake up the next morning to watch the sunrise. Like I wake up at like 9 a.m., which is very late for this trip. And everybody's like really happy that I'm awake and not hallucinating anymore. And I'm like, what's going on, guys? And it was just like, oh, it's so good to see you. And then I found out a couple days later that I had hypothermia. Definitely could have died, didn't, obviously. But the counselors were very concerned. They wanted to see if they could evacuate me, but because of the blizzard and how high up we were, that just wasn't going to be possible. They had emergency radios that nobody knew about at the time, but they couldn't even use them. And so they just had to hope that I was going to make it through the night. It's fun. It's fun to learn as a 15-year-old. But because I was 15, and like aside from the heavy smoking, like in pretty good shape, I bounced back very quickly. Thankfully, I was able to continue the hike with everybody else, get up to the summit of the mountain, above the tree line, see some of the most amazing things I've ever seen in my entire life. Still, and then we get back to town. And I meet back up with the kids that I made fast friends with the first 2 days, right? And we had like a day off to do whatever we want. We all just go and like buy cigarettes and sneak away from everybody else. We go to a bar in Jackson Hole and go to the bathrooms there and just sit in the stalls and just chain smoke cigarettes. Because we can't bring them back to the campsite, And this is 1995, so you just smoke anywhere back then, right? And it's disgusting. Like for the first time, like smoking is not cool. It just feels gross. It tastes terrible, especially after breathing all this clean mountain air. And then after we get out of there, we go and we buy breath mints and gum, and masking the smells. And we start talking, and it turns out that everybody has gotten in trouble, like I have, But some of the older kids have gotten in worse trouble, right? They've been expelled from their schools, they kicked off their soccer teams, like all kinds of horror stories. And I'm like, I just got busted with like spaghetti sauce. That's my story. But I've seen like the road that I could go down, and having just survived this, I guess it's a near-death experience that I wasn't totally aware of at the time. It didn't quite scare me straight. Like I didn't stop smoking cigarettes and drinking. I did stop selling fake drugs, but the whole experience, it did become like the beginning of the end of my rebellion. I didn't have this long hair much longer after this. I did cut back on my smoking, And I just really like my transition into becoming a real adult after that. So that's it. That's what I think about when I think about summer and teenage years. So we're gonna get the show going here. Our first storyteller I want to bring up here. He's a storyteller, obviously. He's the host of a lovely podcast called Love Hurts, which I think a bunch of us here have appeared on at some point. If you go to the Story Collider podcast on your device, you will find this week's episode features him. Please give a very warm welcome to my friend Bryan Berlin.
Sorry, one second. Okay. Thank you. So when I was in 5th grade, I moved to a new school in a new state, and I was like a new kid for that 5th grade year, but then 6th grade happened, and we all, it was 4 elementary schools fed into a middle school, so I was no longer the new kid, and I quickly kind of made a group of maybe 5-ish friends in 6th grade. And it felt like I was just I made these 5 guy friends, and those were my guy friends until senior year of high school. It was just this thing of oh, well, this is easy. We figured this out, and we'll just be friends forever now. And in 6th grade, on weekends, we would kind of go over to one kid's house. The parents would order pizza and soda, and we would just play games in the basement. We'd play ping pong. We'd play video games. And that was 6th grade, and then that was also 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade. We just did that all the time. We'd go to the movies sometimes, but that was my social life. And then senior year came along, and these friends started being interested in the party scene of high school. And so they were going to these parties with alcohol, and I was just not at that level at all. And so suddenly, my weekends started to get a little bit lonelier, and I found some other friends that we would, still go to the movies and do stuff like that, but I kind of lost this, core group of friends my senior year of high school. It was kind of a bummer, and I would, still see them and do some stuff with them at times, but just, felt like I was losing them a little bit. And the end of senior year came along, and prom was, the big, event at the end of senior year. And there was this tradition in my town that had been going on for maybe 3 or 4 years at this point. I lived in New Jersey, but kids would rent these 3 houses up in Vermont that were on this dead-end street, and they would just drink there for 3 days straight and have this wild party before everyone went off to college. And all of my friends, this friend group, were we're gonna go up to Vermont to the Vermont houses. And I was sort of left in this space of being well, do I want to hang out with these people before I go work at my summer camp and go to college and never see them again. But do I want to put myself into this party atmosphere? And there's this other party that's well, I'm gonna go to college, and this is a part of college, so I have to start training. I have to start training for the party scene of college, right? And so I'm okay, I'll leave this up to my parents. I'll tell them about it. They say yes, that's fine. And I asked them, and they say yes, almost immediately, too quickly, to the point where they're we know you're kind of lame, and this is gonna be good for you, so please go. And so before I could even argue with them, I'm on this charter bus up to Vermont, and we get there, and it's there's these 3 houses, and there's one house which is the football players and all their friends. And the second house is the hockey players and all their friends, and then the third house is the leftovers, and that's where I am. But those are also my people, so I feel I've done this in a way where I'm the conditions are the best where I can succeed here. But it also feels me walking off this bus, seeing this dead end street. The show 24 was on around this time, and I remember whenever the commercials of 24 would go on, the digital clock would come up, and there'd be that doot, 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 as the timer was going, and I just saw in my head as I stepped off the bus a 72-hour timer pop up. I have to survive this long out of this scenario. And so I'm the first day we're settling in, and my friends and I are throwing around the frisbee. I'm oh, this is kind of fun. This is my style. And then we get to the first night, and the transitioning to drinking has started. And the first night was like a themed night, and the theme was dressed to get laid.
Oh.
And I was nowhere near getting laid at this point in time, so like I didn't even understand like what that meant, like what the concept of that was. And so I remember kind of like people were getting ready, going to hang out downstairs, and I kind of like crept downstairs to see what people were wearing because I was like, I don't know what to do here. And like all the girls are in like I guess I don't even know what these are called now. Like they're like teddies or negligees. In my head, that's what they are, but I don't actually know what that is. Like the bras with like the little bit of a shirt to it and underwear, right? Like all the girls are like in that kind of stuff. I actually have no idea what anything is even now at 33, but at 18, I definitely did not have any idea what any of this was. And a lot of guys are like basically in boxers, right? Like no, most of them are not wearing shirts. And I'm just like, I am not ready for like I wasn't ready for the drinking part of the partying, but like I'm definitely not ready to just be out like this. And so I devised this idea where I put on a pair of gym shorts and a flannel shirt that I button half the way down. So I have like half of my shirt exposed. And when people ask me like, oh, what are you wearing? I'm like, oh, I'm a sexy lumberjack. Like, how it's so good to be comfortable in this scenario. And you know, it's other than that, like it's not bad. Like there's ping pong. So like, oh, I'm at home with my ping pong, I'm playing ping pong with my friends, people are drinking, I'm not drinking. And at one point, like a friend is talking to me and I'm like, oh, I think like she might be flirting with me. Like this feels flirty. Like I felt parts of this before and this is happening a little bit. And so I'm kind of wandering off and coming back and she like is seeking me out now at the party. And I'm like, oh, whoa, like I think there's something here. Like this is something that happens at parties. This is kind of cool. And then she throws up everywhere. And she was very drunk and I just didn't know that because I had not been around drunk people before. And so I end up like taking care of her the rest of the night. Like I get her cleaned up, I get her to bed. And then I'm going to sleep. Like the night one failure, like that's fine. And I wake up the next morning, there's 48 hours left. And I hear like ding, ding, ding. Like, oh god, okay. So, and I'm like, I gotta get more into it. Like I'm not putting enough effort in, I feel like. And at noon, everyone decides to do a power hour. And that is where you take like a sip or a shot of beer or whatever, like every minute for an hour. And somebody like made a playlist where like 1 minute songs and at the end, like just 1 minute of a song, not I don't know if you can find 61 minute songs, but 1 minute of a song, and then you'd sip at every new transition of the song. And I'm like sipping, I'm not like full on. But after this hour, I probably have like 2 beers, and I'm thinking I'm gonna get drunk, but instead I just get very tired. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm gonna go take a nap quick. It's it's early afternoon, and I go up and take a nap, and I sleep for 5 hours. And I feel refreshed, but I also I come downstairs and like chaos has happened while I've been sleeping. Like people have just been drinking the entire time, and now I'm just in a place where I can't catch up. Like the world is happening, and I'm just at a different level. And like one of the first things I realized is what I've come across is like I have these 2 friends who are like arguing with each other. They're dating, and they're in a bit of like some kind of fight they got going on, and I'm like, oh god, well. And they kind of pull me, Ryan, figure this out for us. And then I'm like working through this fight with my 2 friends, and I'm like, this is not what I want to do, but for like an hour, I'm just being like the in-between of these 2 people as they're having this like altercation with each other. I'm like, this is not what I signed up for. I finally like get myself away from them, and I walk downstairs to 2 of my friends who are about to like fist fight each other. And they're much bigger than me, but I'm like the sober person here, and I have to like break them up, and they're not happy about that. And I'm just like, I'm not doing it right now. I also haven't eaten, I'm really hungry. And all that's in the fridge is like bread and Kraft singles. So I'm like, I guess I'm just gonna make like a grilled cheese. And I'm making a grilled cheese, and one of my friends is like, oh hey, I love a grilled cheese. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And another friend's like, I love a grilled cheese. And the next thing I know, I'm eating 20 grilled cheeses for the entire house. And that's when it hits me that like, oh, I've become like the house mom of this party. But I also realized that that's kind of who I am anyway, and I'm just embracing it at this moment. And so at that point, I kind of give up on being a part of the party scene that night, and I just want to go to bed, and I try to get up to my room, but my roommate is like hooking up with somebody, and I can't get into this room. And so I find like the corner of the house where nobody is, and I find a little couch. It's like not big enough for me to fully lie out on, but I get on this couch and I go to bed. And I wake up the next morning and there's 24 hours left, and I just don't know how I'm going to do it. And there's somebody who's up, like it's early, and somebody wakes me up kind of like rustling through the room. And I'm like, oh, what's going on? And she's like, oh, my mom had to come pick me up early. We have a family thing, so I got to get out of here. And I was like, do you have room in your car? And she's like, yeah, we have a spot. And I grab all my stuff, like everyone's asleep, and I just grab everything and leave. Because I can't do another 24 hours. And we drive off, and I just realize, like maybe this isn't for me. And the next year, the next senior class that does this party again goes up to Vermont. But like finally, I feel like some parent was like, what the fuck is going on? Why are you letting this happen? And they called the police up in Vermont. And so the buses got up there and the police were waiting for them, took all their alcohol and then sent the buses back to New Jersey. So like even though I didn't last the whole weekend my year, I lasted longer than all those kids the following year. Thank you.
Thanks, Bryan. I immediately thought of like the similar thing in my high school, where every winter a bunch of kids would get houses in West Virginia at Snowshoe, which is like a ski resort. I don't know. Every year there was always pressure to go, and I never wanted to go. And then senior year, it was like, all right, it's the last chance. Like my girlfriend wanted to go, and I was like, all right, fine, fuck it, I'll go this year. And I stayed in the house with a bunch of guys I knew, but like wasn't really friends with. It was a small high school, so we were all friendly. They all had nicknames for each other, and I didn't have a nickname, obviously, because I don't like hang out with them. And the first night, we're all like getting ready before going over to like the big party house. I'm taking a shower, and then I come out, and they're all like, we figured out your nickname. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, we're going to call you Spanky. I'm like, what do you mean? Why are you going to call me that? They're like, it's cool, Spank Dog, all right? I go to the party, and people are just like snickering, calling me Spanky all night. I'm like, how did this spread so fast? And it turns out they just devised this story that somebody caught me jerking off in the shower, and they're going to call me Spanky from now on. And I'm just like, this is like social death in high school, right? Like, I mean, look, I was a teenage boy, like I masturbated, obviously, but like, I would not be so uncouth as to be caught by my peers, And the more it made me mad, the more people just continued to call me this nickname. And thankfully, it didn't last like too long outside of the Snowshoe, West Virginia. But there are still 2 or 3 guys that I'll see very occasionally, and they will always greet me with, "What up, Spank Dog?" And that's why we're so anxious about those parties, right? Because we're not built for that, I guess. But yes, thank you, Bryan, for that lovely story. Let's hear it one more time for Bryan. All right, we're going to keep the show moving. Our next performer, she is the host of the Badass Trans Women of Comedy and The Waiting Room, and she has a new solo show called Hack and Slash that's going to be premiering on July 14th at Dixon Place. Please give a warm welcome to Sammie James.
Hey. So, I am a bisexual trans woman, and I was not out clearly by that picture that at 17. Here's how you know I was a depressed in the closet 17-year-old. I think I'm smiling in this picture. I'm just like, is this what it is? So I wasn't out. And I didn't even really understand either of those things in high school. It is really weird looking back and realizing all the crushes you didn't know were crushes at the time because you only thought you were attracted to girls. And it's even weirder realizing that you went through a bad boy phase you didn't know you were going through. But I'm realizing, just like, oh my god, that was just a whole lot of, if I'd known what this was and been able to act on it, it would have just been a whole lot of mistakes. It would have been ignoring a lot of red flags. But then again, I didn't even know what to do with the crushes I knew were crushes. I didn't know what to do with the attraction I knew for a fact was there, because in high school, the only understanding of trans identity that I was able to put together, the only thing that gave me some idea of what life is for a boy who wants to be a girl, which is the only language I had, was the available answers from horror movies and the porn and erotica I was finding on the internet with my misguided Ask Jeeves and Yahoo search results. So I would, when Grace asked me out, I said no because I didn't want to either A, kill her and wear her skin, or B, have her find out this secret of mine and lord it over me, forcing me into sexual servitude, which were the two options presented to me by the available media. And even besides that, a lot of times I didn't know if it was just finding someone attractive. I didn't know if I wanted to be with Jessica or be Jessica. And this confliction in my head resulted in, most of the time, me just staring at girls, which, I don't know if you know this, just fucking creepy. And I knew it at the time, okay? I understood that. And I would be inside my head saying, like, you need to stop this isn't okay. I wouldn't, if I was able to be who I think I'm supposed to be, I wouldn't want someone staring at me. And that interaction just resulted in the staring becoming, which is so much creepier. I'm so sorry, class of 2007 high school girls, okay? But what I want to talk about is one of the other types of crushes. It is really weird realizing you were in love with your best friend. It's really weird realizing that in your 30s. And it's really weird and unfortunate finding out that your best friend in high school firmly fits into the category of misguided, red flag, would have been a mistake, bad boy crushes. Because at the time, I just thought I had this best friend who I wanted to spend all my time with, sit on a couch watching movies, while also sometimes wanting to stare into his beautiful blue eyes. Okay, I just wanted, he was just the person I could be honest with, not about the queer and trans thing, but anything that wasn't a superficial conversation, but whose ass I also occasionally checked out, and who one time in gym class, I thought to myself, Nick has really nice abs. Like straight boys do. And so this was a friendship that was so important to me, and I honestly do give him credit for keeping me alive in high school and helping me make it to the end. But I told you, he was a problematic bad boy, would have been a mistake crush. Nick liked to set shit on fire.
Oh!
Okay? Nick got in trouble in high school more than once for pulling out a joint and lighting it in a classroom. Okay? And most troubling of all, Nick's favorite movies were Cannibal Holocaust and American Psycho. Like, this would have not been good. But we got each other, okay? And it wasn't just having similar tastes in music and movies, although I just pretended to like those two movies. Maybe it kind of is like I was dating him. She was like, yeah, this movie's great. But, so, this friendship was so important to me, and knowing this guy for really my whole life, but getting really close in high school, it kept me alive, and we both, after high school, had to figure our shit out to keep going. I came out, Nick figured out his own stuff. He had family issues that he worked out. And we really became healthy adults until when we were both 27 and we hadn't seen each other in a really long time. I saw a news article months after it had happened. This guy who had been so important to me had died of a drug overdose after being put on painkillers. And I've had this intense pain in my heart where I didn't just, miss this friend, but it also dawned on me, holy shit, I was in love with him. And I miss him, and it's really weird to know that he was my first love, but I'm also kind of glad I didn't know it at the time, because as I've already said, I probably would have made a horrible mistake, and that's it for me.
One more time for Sandra. Number one, I think I would have been friends with Nick. I also got in trouble for lighting stuff on fire. I never lit a joint in class, but I did roll several joints in class, especially in geometry class. That teacher was out to lunch. I was twist up joints with notebook paper back there to smoke on the way home. I want to say, good for you for realizing that staring at girls was creepy when you were in high school, because I just didn't realize that. I'm embarrassed to say. I legit thought it was a way to get a girl's attention, just stare at her. And so she would catch my eyes. And then I moved to New York City. I learned very quickly that is not okay to do, especially on the subway. And then I took a class, a film class about feminist film, and I learned about the male gaze. Really turned everything around. But I was 19 when I figured that out. It sounds like you had to figure it out way earlier, so good for you. So great story. Thank you, Sammie. All right, we're going to keep the show moving. Our next performer, she is a triple threat storyteller. She's a writer and a performer, and has a lovely podcast called it's called Strangers Abroad. Is that right? Yes. Thank you. Okay, got it right. We're very excited to have her here tonight. Please give a warm welcome to Adrien Behn.
Okay. Oh, she's a real beaut. So I believe that every family, no matter how dysfunctional, always unites around a common enemy. That could be a crazy teacher or an unstable uncle. But for me and my family, it was our neighbor, Joanne. Joanne was this bulldog of a woman. She's always like hunched, short, like buzz cut hair, really spiky, always in like cargo pants, and she's always on her lawnmower. And she just like fumed, like, don't talk to me. And she loved telling us what to do with our lawn, that our grass was too tall. She once yelled at my sister to get out of a tree that on our property. So just like, she once said that our dog barked too loudly. Like, she just loved micromanaging on the acre of land that she had to herself. I grew up in the Hudson Valley. I didn't really have a lot of neighbors because I grew up like deep in the woods. So that was like kind of all we had. But fortunately, I had 2 little sisters. I am the oldest, which means I'm very comfortable telling other people what to do. My nickname as a 4-year-old was Napoleona because I was bossy and little. So the person I bossed around the most was Regina, my middle sister. And Regina and I are a real study in contrast. I was the theater kid, and Regina was the soccer kid. I had that hair, and Regina had this long, beautiful, pin-straight, platinum blonde hair. Like, if she bottled it, Gwen Stefani would buy it. And it's freaking gorgeous. And, we very much got along, but we were sisters. I don't like it when people say, oh, she's like a sister to me. Because it's like, I've pushed my sister off a computer chair because it was my turn to play Frogger. Like, I would never do that to my friend. But for the most part, Regina and I really did. We were sisters. And there's no better story of that dynamic than December 9th, 2005. It is the first snow day. And it's just about to be Regina's birthday. She's born like right at the end of December. And my dad, Joe, was so happy when Regina was born because that meant he got to take 2 kids out of his taxes in 1993. He was like, oh, you always pull money from me, Regina. So it's Regina and I. It's December. It's very cold in upstate New York. It's the first snow day, and both of our parents are gone. And they've taken my little sister, Jessica. We don't care about her in the story. So my dad has taken Jess to the nursery, and my mom is at Chatham Flowers, doing Christmas arrangements. And so we're home alone. And my mom's like 10 miles away. So we're doing all the things that you do. I'm about 15, and the story of Regina's like 11, 12. So we're doing all the things that you do when your parents aren't home. Like, I'm in our comfy sweaters and socks. Regina's making hot chocolate. I'm playing The Sims. Like, we're playing Old Spice Girls songs. It's amazing. And around noon, Regina is like, I'm gonna go and see how much snow has fallen. So she takes out a little yardstick and she goes outside, and I do what any older sister would do, and I lock her out of the house. And so she's like, no, like she realizes that I locked her out of the house. So she's like, no. So she's banging on the door, and then she runs around to the back of the house to go through the back. And I am like, high on what I've just done. So I'm like, I'm gonna chase her. So I unlock the door and I run out. And I'm like, oh God, I don't have any like socks or shoes or anything. Regina put socks and shoes on. So I was like, oh God, it's really, really cold. It's really, really cold. So I'm like, I gotta get back in the house before Regina locks me out. I clock that there is a snowplow man coming down her driveway. So I turn around and I see Regina is coming through the house. She's got her hand on the door and she's like ready to shove it. So I run up to the door. I'm like, ah. So I push on the door, but instead of hitting wood, I hit glass, and my hand goes through the window. And it's so quiet that we can hear the snowfall around us. And I can't really feel anything, but I see blood on the glass, and I see Regina's face inches from my hand, and I'm like, you gotta do something. So I close my eyes, I pull my hand out, I do a bloody Jackson Pollock, and now we start running towards the snowplowman. And the last thing I really remember is seeing Regina's long, beautiful hair billowing in the wind like a lion's mane because her sister's hurt and she needs help. We need to get someone. So the snowplowman sees these 2 girls and screaming and a trail of red in the snow, and he just turns off the snowplow and he hops off and he ushers us back into the house, and he tag teams with Regina, and he's like, go get a towel. And Regina, in the insanity of the moment, and her 11-year-old brain goes, well, what kind of towel? Like a paper towel, like a beach towel, like a dish towel, like what kind of? She's stuck in this like Seinfeld macabre routine, and he's like, a big towel, just get her a big towel. So Regina gets her the biggest towel, wraps it around my hand, and I'm like holding my hand up, and he's like, okay, call 911. She calls 911, she tells him 689, I'll be a turnpike, get here. And then he's like, okay, call your dad. And I am still hearing like the Sims music playing in the background of like, this is my reality now. So she gets on the phone with my dad, and she's like, 766-9820, and it rings, and it rings, and it rings. Joe here. And Regina's like, Dad? She's literally trying to make it sound like it's not a big deal. Adrien hurt herself. And my dad is like, gee, you know where the first aid kit is. And she's like, well, it's kind of worse. And then he hears the sirens go by the nursery. And he's like, oh, I gotta buy girls. And so he, by the time my dad gets home, I'm already in the ambulance. And Regina's in the ambulance. And my dad is about to hop in, but before we leave, Regina notices that I don't have any socks on. So she runs into her bedroom and she gets her favorite pair of LL Bean socks and she puts them on my feet. And we hop off to the hospital. And they have to like cut out my favorite sweater, and I was like, this sucks. Like that was the part I was actually the most upset about. And I'm so psychologically like, what is happening? I start disassociating and I start reciting Shakespeare because I can't handle what is happening. And I recite Shakespeare the whole way to the hospital. And I actually don't really remember much. I don't remember if they put me out. When I was in the ambulance, all I remember is like waking up and discovering that I had cut a nerve, an artery, and a tendon. And I mean, the beauty about cutting a nerve is that you don't really feel anything, so I actually didn't go through any pain. No one likes that joke. I'm always gonna say it. I'm always gonna say it, because it's true to me. It's deep in here. And my mom says, first of all, I find out that the snowplow man was training to be an EMT. Like, are you kidding? There is no one around there are 47 people in the hamlet of Old Chatham. Like, the mere probability that someone's there at that time is honestly a miracle. So that was wild. And then my mom goes, the weirdest thing happened because when I got home, my mom came in from Town Flowers to get me stuff so I could like stay the night. And she was like, when I walked in, there was obviously like a hole in the window, like the window was gone, but there was no mess. Like it was totally, and my dad and all of my sisters, we had gone together, and we find out years later that Joanne had come in and cleaned up the mess. She let herself in. But she cleaned up my blood. And that is something I would never want my parents to have to do after being so reckless. And I have never thanked her for that. Because years later, she stole her cat. And she still scares me. She just went right back to her antics. And, there's bigger signs now. And she still is horrifying. But Regina and I are closer than ever. She has two little girls who are actually the same exact age difference as Regina and I. And I'm like, that's very Freudian. And interesting planning, Regina. And, we're closer than ever. And I cannot wait until they are old enough so I can tell them the cautionary tale of when Regina shoved my hand through a window. Because if anything, I'm good at reframing narrative. But we can tease about it. We can very much tease about it. Because this is the thing. Joanne, she can do one nice thing and still be a terrible neighbor. But Regina and I can continue to do terrible things to each other. And we are always sisters. Thank you so much.
You might to maybe get Joanne on the show. She's got some stories, right? That was harrowing. Yeah. I'm glad my wife wasn't here. She's the sort of person who, like, every time they take her blood at the doctor's office, they just passes out, so she would not have made it to that whole story. It reminded me, though, of, like, when I think I was 5, my brother was 2.5. I was chasing him around the house, lighthearted, terrorizing him, I'm sure. And we were in my parents' room. They have, like, a big, like, 4-post bed, and he tripped as I was chasing him, and he hit his head on the edge of the bed frame. And like right here on his temple. And I don't know what happened after that because my memory just turns red. Like just a lot of blood, obviously, and I passed out. So my parents, come in to find my brother screaming, right? Blood gushing out of his head. I'm passed out cold on my carpet. I don't even know I'm fine. Just couldn't handle all the blood. Yeah, great. What a good sibling rivalry stories. Thank you. One more time for Adrien. We've got one more storyteller for you, but before we get to her, I just want to quickly do a little housekeeping, a little song and dance about our show here. If you were listening to these stories tonight and you thought like, oh, I have a nice teenage story that I would like to tell on this show. Well, we encourage that. In fact, we've had a number of people who have been previous audience members become storytellers on our show, and we would love to hear from you. If you do have an idea, you can pitch it to us at awkwardteenageyears@gmail.com or reach out to us on any of these various social media platforms. We're not really on Twitter. We put it on there. We don't really use it. It's such a weird name too. Awk Teen Years. So maybe use Instagram. Also, all of our shows are up on YouTube. We did a bunch of shows during the pandemic over Zoom, just like everybody else did. They were weird, but they were fun. You can find all those. You can find all of our live shows that we've done in the course of the last year. You have to search Awkward Teenage Years on YouTube to find us there, and we encourage you to do that. And I think that's, is that everything I'm supposed to say?
Yeah.
All right, nailed it. Okay, all right, let's get to our final storyteller for the evening. You can find her on the Moth podcast and website. She has a YouTube channel called Stay Golden, which I'm told has some 70,000 subscribers. Very impressive. And bring up my wife again because I think she would love this. She hosts a Golden Girls bingo night, and the next one is August 25th.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to try to bring my wife to that. Please welcome to the stage Courtney Antonioli.
Everybody aggressively taller than me? I guess so. Oh, there she is. I led a dual life in high school. By day, I was a jock, captain of the varsity soccer team, all-state travel team, captain of the tennis team. And, on school buses to games and in classrooms. That's how people knew me, but I was an only child. I was pretty silent and kept to myself, and so when I would be around other kids, I'd hear the other girls talking about, they would be fawning over Jonathan Taylor Thomas or wishing that they were Claire Danes in the newest Romeo and Juliet, and I was secretly fantasizing about Bill Pullman in the 1995 gem While You Were Sleeping. I wanted to be Annette Bening in The American President because I wanted Michael Douglas to cast away the presidency for me. While my teammates were trying to find their twins, their long-lost twins at summer camp, I was trying to activate my latent mutant powers. Nobody knew any of this about me because I kept all this to myself. But that's the Courtney that they knew, the jock. But by night, I was Alexandria LaChase. So we got a gateway computer, and after 75 hours of waiting for my AOL to ring true, I discovered the world of AOL's online role-playing message boards and chat rooms. Side note, this was also my metaphorical gateway into fan fiction, of which I was well known in the communities for Wolverine and Storm fan fiction, as well as Giles, just Giles from Buffy. But text-based role-playing, right? So you just sit by yourself in a dark room for hours on end, and you go into chat rooms, you create a character, or you can become one from your favorite pop culture, and you type about stories, you respond to messages, you play around, and everything your character does, you type out. Just endless amounts of typing, right? So this is a dream for a person who doesn't talk to other people. And I spend after school, before school, after work, before work, school vacations, all the free time I have, I'm sitting in these AOL message boards, and I'm role-playing in a world called the Riding Realm, which, for some inexplicable reason, the moon is always full. And because I like community and teams, I join a guild, which is the Order of the Crimson Star, and that guild is run by a cat named Boo Radley and Darth Vader. So you could be anybody you want to be in these role-playing universes, and I loved it. I didn't tell anybody about it. You know, you're going to the games, and everyone's chatting around you, and I'm just like, I can't wait to get home to get to my guild. I can't wait to get home to get to my guild. And when you go, you can go on message boards, and you can also go to chat rooms, which were called taverns at the time. And in every tavern, every female patron would glide in effortlessly. That was not effortlessly. With luscious, overflowing locks that hid two cerulean pools just above a mischievous grin. And every male patron had either long black or silver hair and a mysterious background. And I loved it. And I would log on, I would check my chats, I'd be like, okay, what are we gonna do today? Oh, we're just gonna sit in a chat room and recruit. Because when you're in a guild, the other half of this is recruiting, because somehow, even in a fantasy world, there are pyramid schemes. And I took this very seriously because I wanted to be promoted to the commander of the Jade Trident. And this was my only endeavor in life, so I would sit 4, 5, 6, 7, sometimes 8 hours in a chat room trying to recruit people into my guild. And it was really fun for me because I could be anything I wanted with Alexandria, right? And my character, she was not French, P.S., but I picked the name for her crayon marks because I thought that was artsy. And that would make her seem quirky, and she would be cute in that kind of rom-com way where the outcast girl takes off her glasses and everyone's like, whoa, where did she come from? I felt like that crayon marks, absolutely, that is what you heard when you saw that name. But also, what were we doing with these screen names back in the day, people? It's 45 iterations, and I was like, yes, crayon marks is available. Of course it was available. Of course it was, and I still have it. I just want you to know, if you want to buy it, it's not for sale. And also, the thing that I'm a competitive person by nature. I played soccer for 20 years. I was at the highest level of my abilities at the time that I was in high school. And so, at the same time that I'm recruiting, there is an excessive amount of bureaucratic paperwork when you're a member of a guild. I'm talking reports, applications, medals, morale letters, message boards. I wrote more reports for my guild than all 4 years of my English classes combined in high school. And I did that joyfully, And Courtney, by day, she didn't have a boyfriend. She didn't even really think it was an option. She was too busy, but also boys didn't notice her, and she felt quite uncomfortable around them. But Alexandria, she was married. To a half-human, half-fox named Alec Frost. He could control snow. bring up a point. Because the other half of the role-playing world, when you're like not in the chats trying to recruit people, is your private messages and your AIM doing very primitive, very sad cyber sexting. And I really don't want to call it sexting because the 1998 version of this was very basic, very, very much the following. You write things like, presses up against you. That's hot. Nibbles on your ear, because nibbling was a very popular way of showing affection in the role-playing world. I guess, the furries. Like, okay. My favorite, when you're like getting ready, like, ooh, you're gonna tip it into that like real sexy part, holds your member in my hand. But this was hot. This was so hot. My parents are 2 doors down in our very small condo, and I'm just like typing away at the computer, like, oh yeah, I'm holding it. Look at me hold it. You like me holding it. Like that. And it was a masterpiece. Everything you wrote was a masterpiece when you were role playing, because I was an artist who admired their work. So I printed out some of those chat logs at the library at school, and I kept them in a folder that I kept in my pillowcase. Because I like to review my work sometimes before bed. Never imagining that my mother might change the sheets one day. See, my mother is the type of person who, if you are 5 minutes late, she has called every hospital in the state. This is also Chris Hansen's To Catch a Predator era. So Mary Ellen finds this folder, and then she proceeds to call the Naugatuck Police Department.
Oh my God.
And has 2 cops sent over to our house. And when they arrive, for the next 2 hours on my Sunday night, I have to try and explain to them the online role-playing fantasy world that I spent a good 40 hours a week in. These 2 middle-aged men who have no concept of fantasy. They're just like, So you're saying that Alexandria is not you, but it is you because you write it. So like it is you, and I'm like, oh, but it's not really me. But maybe like the best version of me, or the me I want to be during the day when I'm like not talking to anybody and not telling anybody about this. And I have to answer questions, and I'm like, no, I'm not in a cult. This is not a cult. No, I don't think I'm really married to a half man, half fox. No, I can't get pregnant from cyber sexting. That's not possible. Sirs, I've not invited anybody over to the house because it's not real. I actually live in a castle in an ice planet with my half fox hat. No, too much information. I'm fine. This is fine. You should just go now. And they do. And my mother just folds the folder and promptly throws it in the garbage. And I'm like, haha, joke's on you, because I can print out multiple copies. Mary Ellen really thinks she had me there. And I go back to school the next day on the school bus in my uniform, going to a soccer game. And everybody's talking about what they did this weekend. Chat. And they're like, oh, hey, Courtney, what did you do this weekend? And I was like, as I am every day, I just hung out. Every time. Yeah. Go Greyhounds. Thank you.
I also had a mother who is watching this right now, and also like to get the police involved early and often. And I'm so glad she never found any of the stuff that I wrote in high school. Wow, that was amazing. Thank you so much. One more time for Courtney. And let's hear it again for all of our storytellers, for Bryan and Sammie and Adrien. That's our show, folks. Thank you so much for coming. For those of you watching online, thank you for watching online. I also want to thank our amazing tech wizard, Lauren, up in the booth. Cameron, our house manager. And we are a monthly show. I should have said before, Grant, I did forget something.
God damn it.
We're a monthly show. We do this the first Thursday of every month. So we're going to be back here at 7 p.m. on Thursday, August 4th. We'd love to see you there. If you enjoyed the show, please tell all of your friends. Thanks, and get home safe.